At this point, it's understood that the bottom line of chapter 6 is the death decree. The law of the Medes and the Persians would be for them what the legs of iron would be concerning Rome. They both represent their final condition of being hardened in rebellion against God. This will be, in effect, mankind taking its last stand with Satan against God. All of this sheds a great deal of light on what the lion's den represents. It's well understood that the lion represents Satan, whom Peter says is a predator who goes about seeking whom he may devour. But in this case, there is a pit of lions. Lions, plural, is a reference to Satan in a plural or cumulative sense. This is a symbol of Satan's total history, so to speak. To put it simply, the pit represents the situation that Satan will find himself in because he's cornered or confined. The point here is that the faithful servant of God will have to face Satan in a final confrontation. Both have come to the end of their journey, and now the outcome is expected to be what it has always been, which is the lion devouring its prey. And again, the thing that Daniel is being accused of is making his petition to God 3 times a day. This is supposed to be such a grievous offense that he deserves to be condemned to death, which means being thrown into the pit of lions. Furthermore, the other leaders refer to Daniel as one of the children of the captivity of Judah. This simple diagram shows what the symbolism of Daniel's experience means in terms of its spiritual implications. On the left is the chapter represented as history. On the right is the history's prophetic import, which is the final ordeal of the new covenant. This explains why Daniel's act of praying 3 times a day represents such a serious threat to Satan. The point is, Daniel's understanding of the covenant is the church finally coming to a full understanding of God's plan of salvation. That is the point of him being thrown into the lion's pit. Daniel's prayers are the church's prayer for forgiveness in the Day of Atonement, as it looks forward to the second coming of Christ, which will no doubt make Satan very angry. The next question to ask here is, who does King Darius represent? Because seldom, if ever, does one talk about the king, which is ironic considering how important a figure he is in this story. The question is, how could he be so badly deceived in one moment and then be so compassionately supportive of Daniel in the next? If the lion's den is the final showdown between Satan and the church, then Darius is the one that will make it happen. To that end, it's important to figure out who or what he represents. Historically, Darius was one of Cyrus's generals. Technically, it's not clear that he was in fact a king, nor is it clear about how long he reigned as the king. He is in many respects a mystery, which makes him all the more important as a symbolic figure. The Bible says, "Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, Thy God, whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee." One has to wonder, how is it that Darius had so much faith in Daniel's God that he would even suggest that Daniel's God could do the impossible? Surely, being cast into the lion's den was a death sentence. No doubt the seals from the 2 signet rings made it clear who was responsible for this death sentence, if anyone should ask, especially since the king's decree had been signed that said his edict must last for 30 days. Darius's decree was for Daniel what the national Sunday law will be in the end. In both cases, religious liberty is the issue. That was the point of the king being manipulated into signing the decree in the first place. While his thinking may have been much more selfish than malicious, the fallout of the decree was a death sentence for Daniel. It's no wonder that the king felt bad when he realized what he'd done. Daniel would be an innocent victim who would suffer for his mistake, and there was nothing he could do to change that, even though he did try. In the end, all he could do was wait and pray. Then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. Verse 18 is telling us King Darius must be a symbol of those in power who will have maintained a sense of decency and moral integrity when everyone else will have sold out. Because the fact of the matter is, the king was the only one that cared about Daniel's welfare. He was deeply committed to Daniel, which speaks volumes about who and what he represents. Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of lions. These two verses are the stuff that movies are made from. The tension had come to a climax as the king came running from his palace to the mouth of the pit that was guarded by his soldiers. As the king anxiously called to Daniel, what he said was amazing. O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? The king called Daniel a servant of the living God, who served him continually. Surely it must have been the case that Daniel had witnessed to the king, both actively and passively. He must have shared with him who the God of Israel was, because the king referred to Daniel as his servant. And then he asked, is thy God, whom you serve continually, able to deliver you from the lions? Daniel told the king that he had done nothing wrong to either God or the king. Therefore the Lord spared his life. The angel shut the lions' mouths, which is to say, Satan could find no fault in Daniel either. Then was the king exceeding glad for him, for no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. The king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives. Then King Darius wrote unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I make a decree that in every dominion in my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and steadfast forever, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, who hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius, and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian.